Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Tzara Attwater. Did I get the last name right? Oh,
Perfect.
woohoo. So her message is simple. Real lasting love begins with a solid foundation of self-love and self-worth. Too often, she says, we chase after love and validation from others and overlooking the importance of cultivating it within ourselves. Zara, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
A pleasure. It's wonderful to be here and to share heartbeats with you and your listeners. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you, Will.
No, it's my pleasure. So, Zara, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to become, whether you want to call it coaching, helping people? Everybody got different terms, self-help. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I think, we have these peaks and troughs in our lives. And
Uh,
for me, it was about overcoming a trauma, really. But it wasn't until years later when I was able to look back and go, I'm actually really grateful for that event. And the event was, I'm not the first and I definitely won't be the last. I walked in on my partner in bed with my best friend.
oh,
And
jeez.
yeah. So it was a kind of a visual that burnt into my memory. But in retrospect, like I said, at the time, it felt like, it felt like I had been on an aeroplane going to my ideal destination, my most perfect holiday resort, and that was the relationship I thought I had. And then seeing that, it was like I lost cabin pressure and the plane was just plummeting to the earth. I felt very lost. I felt broken. I felt so confused. But it was that definite sinking moment that when I really felt like emotionally, spiritually, physically, I hit rock bottom, was the ability to be able to really look at myself and really take responsibility and ownership for what was mine. And that became my life's mission, my life's work, to be able to help other people in that space and really recognize my own childhood woundings from that contributed to that event. And I say contributed because there are two people in a relationship
Yeah.
and you both have a partial truth. So what was true for me was only half the truth, and what was true for him was only half the truth. And taking responsibility for my part and also letting go of what wasn't mine and not taking it all on board was part of the healing journey. And so that's really it's quite a big thing to start off with, but that was my journey. And well over 10 years ago now, it's probably moving on to 15 years ago, but it was really the catalyst that springboarded me into waking up to my own insecurities, my own woundings, and really developing myself as a mature woman.
It's I've been seeing a lot of videos lately about spouses, one of the spouses cheating and things like that. And boy, I don't know how you got through it to see that, and especially supposed to be your best friend. In today's modern times, it seems that more and more relationships are becoming transactional. This is what I'm reading. This is what I'm seeing on other podcasts and women being interviewed in this, in the streets or whatever. And it seems it's all about transactions. Is that what you're seeing, Zara, out there? Are is is love becoming transactional only, not for forever, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great thing that you raise because I think when we have more choice, we become kind of there's this overwhelm of different choice. And I'm referring to the apps. If you're single and you're trying to date, you've got this app where you've suddenly got access to the entire world, if you want, of
Yeah.
people that are on there, right? And so it kind of desensitizes ourselves from working on the conflicts in the relationship that we currently have because there's this kind of thinking, well, if this isn't working out, I'm just going to go and find somebody else. And so
Yeah.
that transactional kind of thinking that everything's temporary, everything's just going to immediately just satiating my own needs right now, it actually is creating more long-term problems because we're not working them through. It's this, negation motivation system that I talk about.
Mhm.
We're motivated by what we don't want rather than what we do want. And so this idea of having more choice and going on the apps is actually contributing to a rise, I believe, in the fall of relationships, and we're no longer working at them. I mean, I remember my grandmother telling me before she even had a phone, before we had any telephones in the street, let alone in everybody's hand, where, there might have been maybe five or six guys in the neighborhood where there would be a possible connection with. And so she had to develop that relationship, get to know them. It might not have been on looks, there might not have been that kind of attraction initially. So getting to know someone on a really deeper level, understanding their values and their personality traits became a real important part of connecting and developing that long-term relationship. So I think that there's a long-winded way of answering your question, but I think the dating apps is they have their purpose, and they're definitely offering us more choice. But I think it's quite important to get out there and meet someone in real life and get to know them.
I am 100% agreeable in that to meet someone in person. I'm not a fan of dating apps. I haven't been on them in possibly 10 years or so. I just thought for me, like I would get matches and we would, maybe she would text first and I would text and then she would text and I like would say, hey, maybe we can meet for some drinks or something. Or
Yeah.
and then the trail would go cold. And so I got off. I said, you know what's not worth it. Then I'm seeing online where some of these dating apps are trying to get men to pay for more to upgrade their profile. So basically, if you pay an extra $10 a month or 15, so it seems like a money grab for the apps against the men to get their profile in another level. Maybe from tier three to tier two, so more people can see it. Something like that I saw, and to me, it's not worth it. I'd rather just go to singles events, networking events, and meet someone there organically. Um,
Yeah.
and like you said before, like women have more options now, so they could live in Kansas here in the United States, and someone from California, Miami will see him like, wow, she's cute. Let me see if I could fly her out. So women,
That's
to me,
true.
got more options versus men. I read
Well,
somewhere. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
well, yeah, go on. I was just gonna say because you prompted me. It's reminded me of a book I was reading recently, but I forget the name. I'll try and find the. I'll try and remember. But it was talking if we have buckets of kind of buckets of something that the other person wants, right? And for women, women have an abundance of sexual energy, right?
Yeah,
In their bucket, right? Men want that sexual energy in a general terms, right? In
sure.
general terms. And for women, what men have is commitment. Women want men to commit to them, right? They want that safety and that commitment. So men have an abundance of commitment. And if they decide to commit to a woman, that's their treasure trove. That's their
Right.
kind of bank account that they've got, right? For women, they've got that sexual bank account that men are after. And so
Yeah.
I always think about if you've got a woman in a bar by herself, guaranteed you're going to have 10, 15 guys coming up to her through the course of the night, right? Because she's got that bucket, right?
Yeah.
That the men want, right? But if you've got a guy sitting in that bar by himself, how many women are going to go up to him, right? And so he doesn't have that bucket for the woman in the sexual way.
Yeah.
So
100%. I agree there. Yeah.
right. So where this kind of really shows up for men, I mean, I'm finding that young boys, they don't have the kind of security, they don't have that kind of offering of that commitment to the young teenage boys, whereas young teenage women are very kind of attractive to men. They've got that sexualness. So what happens for men over a long enough time period is as they start to mature and they start to develop, they become way more attractive to women because they're offering that security and that commitment. So I'm talking in very general terms here in the heterosexual kind of
Sure.
marketplace. But does that gel? Does that make sense for you? Do
No,
you understand?
100%. I started seeing, like I know some women that are younger in their 20s and early 30s that they like older men because they figured that the men are more established, should be more mature, hopefully, things like
Yeah.
that. And then you see men that are might be in their 50s and 60s and 40s, like a younger women. And so
Yeah.
I think I get the woman's point of view because most men in their 20s don't develop yet. I know for me, I was a late bloomer. It wasn't until my late 30s, early 40s that I felt that, I had secured a good job, some money I saved up and been more mature. When you're in your 20s, you want to hang out, you want to hang out with the boys, you whatever you want to do. But I just
Sure.
see that also too when you talk about commitment, but where it differs for me because if women want commitment too, just as much as a man does, but then why are there such high rates of divorce here in the United States, where supposedly
Sure.
70 or 80% of the women initiated? Now, obviously, there's more to that statistic. So, are the men in your, coaching, your daily coaching, are men are just not committing now? Are they afraid to commit because they might lose a partner that they love, and because of the apps and women having so much dating options now?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, that was long-winded.
no, no, it's a great point that you raise. I think from my own experience in being cheated on and having the and actually coaching to guys, they have that. Let's think of it as a bank account, right? They have that commitment that they're offering, and so when a woman gets into that relationship and they believe that they've got that commitment, their bank account is to offer the sex, is to be able to have that. So you've got this relationship happening now. Guys might be able to get lots of choice by different apps or coming into people. And so their commitment can wane and they want to be able to have sex with lots of different people. This
Right.
is a generalization, right? So I think that's what's happening, that the apps are offering that. But I think that it is a generalization, and I think 50% of the population I know to be securely attached, and they do want that long-term commitment with a loving partner that they can stay with for the rest of their lives. So we're only talking about 50% of the population that isn't adhering to that, and they're constantly going out. What I find really interesting is that if the younger woman has this high bank account of sexual offering, if you like,
Yeah.
as they get older, that starts to diminish. They're no longer as attractive, right? You don't, they don't have so much to be able to offer in that sexual realm, which is why they feel the competition with the younger women.
Yeah.
Conversely, men as they get older become more attractive to women. And so you have this kind of imbalance that's occurring between the relationships. So it's super important if you're wanting that long-term relationship to do that in your 30s and your 40s so that you can hold on to that secure relationship. The people that I work with as they get older are really falling outside of that gap. It takes a great deal of work on their mindset, healing their woundings, so they're not falling into the same relationship traps.
Right.
I,
It's
I don't,
I'm sorry?
I don't know if that's making
Oh,
sense.
no,
It's
no, it
a
does. It does. I'm just thinking like in today's modern times that, because women have the options that they didn't have 10 years ago because of the apps, like you mentioned.
yeah,
Uh, But out of those options that they might have, how many of those guys, or how many of those guys that they're gonna like, because women now have criteria. He has to be over 6 feet. He has to make six figures. He has to have a six pack.
sure.
He has to have his own car. It's like a women. Some women have a 20-point checklist that all those boxes got to check. Are some women pricing themselves out of the dating market by? Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
see you
think
guys.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think there is this idea of, if as a woman, if I've achieved my own business, I've developed my own business. I mean, for myself, I built a motorhome. I stripped out a van.
Wow.
I built a motorhome based on YouTube videos. I fitted it out, and then I started traveling around Australia. And it took 2.5 years to travel around Australia. I did that by myself. Now, there could be a thinking of, well, I don't need anybody else. I've done this by myself,
Right.
a man might feel, well, he's superfluous in that relationship. And it's about shifting the mindset of you're not connecting because of a need that you want the other person to fulfill, but to be able to enrich your life for the sheer enjoyment of being in awe or being inspired by that person. And so that everybody has a place. And I think we get lost in this idea that they're going to replace something, that I need this person in my life because it's expected of me in social terms, or because I'm incapable of doing certain things and therefore I need a man. And it kind of objectifies each other when we do that. And
Yeah.
so it's not about, yeah, it's not about kind of filling a gap. It's enhancing an extra bow to your already beautiful song that, by getting into a relationship. And I think that's so much more true for as we get older and older.
Right. I also noticed, because you made a point about, how you took care of, yourself, what was it that you stripped, what was it, a motorhome? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean that's to me that's amazing. And another thing that I've been hearing out in the dating world about women being independent and all that. And I remember I was thinking about it one day. I'm like, is that such a bad thing? Because then as for a man, most men want the woman to be dependent on them, right? I got to provide, I got to do this, that's my woman. Let me do everything for her. But on the other side of that coin, is it that bad? Because then she's not relying on you. She doesn't need you. She wants you, but she doesn't need you. And as a man, to me, maybe I'm at a crossroads or whatever. It doesn't bother me. If she says, "Oh, I'm independent," I'm like, okay, cool. That means she's not going to rely on me. But on the other side, does that mean she's going to be free to do whatever she wants? Am I in the right ballpark? Even do
Yeah.
I make sense at all?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's true. I think there's a very fine line between when a woman becomes that kind of financially, emotionally independent, if you like, they're not
Yeah.
not having need, but it turns into I want to have somebody in my life. I think that a lot of women, unless they do the inner work, then unless they kind of look at what their motivations are, they can tend to emasculate a man in that sense, that make them
Yeah.
feel superfluous to their own lives. And similarly, men can do the same thing. There's a form of dominance and control that occurs when a man wants a woman to want them in that way. It's not meeting each other on an equal par. And I think this is on the, true for all relationships, whatever your sexual persuasion. If there is an imbalance in a hierarchy, then you're gonna and nobody wants to feel that they're not loved, they're not seen,
Right.
they're taken advantage. It doesn't matter what your gender is. And so it takes the self-development work to be comfortable in who you are and what you are and understand what your boundaries are. That is really, really so important in this day and age, especially with the amount of choice that's happening. And to not make it about you, but about, it's just the other person doing what they want to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely I understand that 100%. I just think too, um, where women, they might reach their peak at 21. I'm not talking about sexual peak, but their money earning, they could, between 21 and 30, they could earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've been reading that women are more and more going to college versus men. But and we're talking with Tzara Attwater here, and today's topic is about self-love, self-worth, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. As a woman gets older, right? And you said that hopefully I didn't misquote you. Like the dating pool goes a little less for them because now they're earning, let's say, six figures. Not too many men
Right.
are earning six figures here in the United States. I think the average salary is between 38 to 50,000. Now, for women's earning 100,000, 150,000, most women don't date down. A
Right.
man doesn't. For me personally, I don't mind dating a woman that's in housekeeping or she works at McDonald's. As long as I find her attractive, I'm fine with that. I always been that way.
Right.
In your daily coaching and people you talk to, have you seen or have you noticed that how some women's dating pool shrinks because of, the more money they make, the more status they gain? Does that make sense?
You're I think there's definitely an argument for that. I definitely think that there are some women that operate like that. Within the coaching and the clients that I deal with, they're predominantly having come from unhealthy relationships where they've
Mm,
had bad experiences in their youth, and now they're feeling like there's a wall up. And so, irrespective of how much money they're making or what they're doing in their career, there's definitely a feeling like he's got to prove to me that he's worthy of me,
right.
rather than seeing themselves as, well, what am I giving them? What is it that I want, and what am I willing to meet them halfway? So there's this wall up, and it's on behalf of protection. And so what I often say to all of my clients, right, that to really take responsibility, that there is no safety in the world for the human heart. There's just
Mm,
no safety for the
very
human
true.
heart. So if you can embrace that and you can accept, this person might hurt me. This could be challenging emotionally, but I'm willing to take that on board because my value and my intention to experience love and to share something with another individual pre is exceeds the fear that I'm going to be hurt. And when you can get into that space, there's so much freedom in that. There is so much emotional intelligence and development that can occur. It doesn't matter what you're earning, like you're saying. It doesn't matter whether she's working in McDonald's or cleaning, or is the CEO of some company. What you're doing is you're having an exchange of values, an exchange of some emotional intelligence, and
Mhm.
just sharing, because we're creatures that need each other as human beings. We really resonate with being in community and connection. It's a strong value for any human being.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I just wish that more people were that way, especially, especially the younger people, because, I see, or like I said, I keep on seeing online, I read, it seems like more of a transactional type of relationship or a transactional type of dating now. We were talking about, which we didn't get to the topic, the headline about self-love, self-worth. If a woman's been through, some issues and things like that, how do they regain that self-love, that self-worth, right? They've been through a couple of bad relationships. The new term here in the United States is going out with the Chads. These are the guys that are 6'3", 6'4", beautiful looking man, but they have so many women lined up that they got their pick of the litter.
Right,
And some of the women choose those type of guys. Another term that they use is bad boys. The guys with the arms tattoos and things like that. And but in most cases, those men have a lineup of women because of the way they look, the way they are, the rebel. And some women complain about that because those guys are not calling them back. So
right,
that's what I mean. Like, how do they develop that self-image and self-love again after going through guys like that or going out with guys
right.
like that?
So the way I'd answer that is looking at attachment styles, right? So if
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
I heard the
it
term, yeah.
right. So it very briefly, Mary Ainsworth did a study in the 1970s where she took, let's just say, a mother, a caregiver, in a controlled environment, was a room with a load of toys in there, and had the mother bring their toddler into that room and play with the toys. And then the mother, caregiver, left the room, and the study was about the reaction of the child
Hmm.
when the mother left the room and when the mother came back into the room. And from that study, that's a very abridged version, but from that study, we got three predominant attachment styles. One was secure, one's anxious, and one's avoidant. And
Mm,
so it translates into our adult relationships now, because we never, as children, we learn these behaviors, and then as adults, we never go back and kind of reevaluate. Is that working for me still? It worked for me then as a child, but it might not be serving me now as an adult. And we don't tend to go back and check on that. And
right.
so that explanation is really talking to these women that are going after bad guys, or the chads. I've not heard that expression before. Uh,
Yeah, that's a US thing.
they're, there would potentially, and again, this is a generalization, but there's potentially a connection that they've made from childhood that they have to earn their love. They have to prove that they are lovable. And that often happens when a major caregiver, a parent,
Yeah.
isn't consistent with giving the child love. And there could be all sorts of reasons for that. So the caregiver might have to have two jobs, be handling two jobs. There might be some kind of single parent happening, or sometimes addictions, whatever is occurring. That the child has learned that the pet caregiver sometimes there for them, sometimes not there for them, and when they're not there, the child can think it's something to do with me. I've done
Yeah.
something wrong, so I'm just having to be good, behave in a different way in order to get the love. Translate that now into an adult, and when they are not treated well, when they are not given the attention that they're wanting, they try extra harder to get that attention. And so they're attracted to the very people that aren't going to give them that love, because it's a learnt behavior. It's what they've learned to associate with being loved is as a child. And so that often happens when if someone's on a date and they've got that anxious attached style running, and they're not feeling the thunderbolt and lightning from the
Yeah.
initial, it's actually really healthy that they're not feeling that thunderbolt and lightning, because that is what's the trigger for this push-pull dance that occurs with wanting to chase love that's not being returned.
Yeah.
And see this so often in women wanting to date, and with guys, the nice guy syndrome, where guys are doing everything that they think that the woman wants, and they're being treated like doormats. It goes both ways. It's not
Yeah.
just on one side. And so this is really to do with a childhood wounding, in my opinion. And again, it is a generalization, but
Sure.
that work on self, and really going where it's uncomfortable to go, and really exploring, how do I heal myself from this pattern? How do I change this? How do I get a healthy, secure relationship that's going to go the distance with me, where I can show up and be myself no matter what, and not feel judged or having to change and be someone else. And that starts with self. It's the self-development journey that sometimes we can only see what we only know what we know. We can only
Yeah.
see what we see, and having the mirror of a coach to be able to mirror back to you the patterns is like going on what I call psychology on steroids. It's just a fraction of the time. You come up with the answers yourself using your own wisdom, your own experiences. It's just such a profound and incredible journey.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. Well, first of all, Zara, I wanted to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. Could probably talk to you for another 2 hours. Um, Before I let you go, anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to promote? More
Yeah.
about your coaching and things like that?
Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned a little bit about getting off the apps and going and find and meeting someone in real life. So I've developed a couple of ebooks, which they're 52 ways to meet someone in real life. So that's one way for every week of the year. So
I
52,
love that.
50.
Yeah.
And also, so that's about getting out and just meeting people in person. And what I would suggest, if you're in the dating pool, go have your list, have your checklist. I get that, but park it and just meet someone where they're at. Recognize that that there might be nerves, there might be all sorts of things happening, and to not to be too harsh. Just show up, have some fun.
Yeah.
So that's the 52 ways to meet someone in real life, and I've also got 52 creative date ideas. So if you're already in a relationship and you want to spice it up a bit and you want to kind of mix things up, again, one date idea for every week of the year. And as an extra bonus in the book, if that's of any interest, all of the images and photographs that I've used in these books are taken on my 2.5 year journey around Australia. So if you're interested to see what a bit of Australiana looks like, you might like those photos too.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. And if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Sure. So my confidence coach, all one word, myconfidencecoach.com.au. I'm in Australia, so I've got the AU at the end. So yeah, you'll find me in there with all the relationship advice. And if you want to reach out, also, if you're not sure about what your attachment style might be, just jump onto my website. I've got a quiz that you can take to find out what your attachment style is. It's free, it's a bit of fun. And I'm more than happy to pick up the chat with you after you've done that and just see how I might be able to help you a bit further. So myconfidencecoach.com.au.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. Well, again, Zara, first of all, again and again and again, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Beautiful. It's been an absolute pleasure to share heartbeats with you and your listeners. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye bye.